What's happening, folks? Welcome to Throwing Stones, brought to you by Detroit Sports Nation. Alongside Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Basson. Excited to have you fellow Hoopers joining us, Throwing Stones. More than just talking about our Pistons. We've got the whole NBA and NCAA as well. But before we dive in, got to remind you to like and subscribe everywhere you can find us. That would be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course YouTube for our entire shows. And we come to TikTok in a minute. Thank you again for joining us. Ryan, I feel for our inaugural show, we should start with our Pistons. Only makes sense, right? So the boys, last year, bad year, 20-52. This year, 18-47 so far. We talked before the season started about how young this team was. Once they added Cade to the mix, we're going to have a lot of fun with a bunch of young guys trying to gel. It's looking like since the All-Star break, they're starting to gel.
Yeah, I mean, their last 8 games, they're 8-2. Their last 6 games, I think they added Marvin Bagley into the mix. Cade's really coming along. And I know the question under here is, what can we truly make of these Pistons? I feel like if you didn't think they were going to be bad at the beginning of the year, you were just hoping, right? Because you saw the progress that Isaiah Stewart had. You saw the progress that Saddiq Bey had. And you saw what Jeremy Grant did as a number one on a team, which was all great and promising, but that team was still the makings of the team that had the first pick in the NBA draft.
Mm-hmm.
So now they bring in Cade Cunningham. Obviously, so much reason to be excited about that. They added Kelly Olynyk, who's kind of been in and out of the lineup this year. But it still didn't have the makings of really a play-in team. Yeah, I was talking to some people just before the start of the season about the Pistons, certainly after they drafted Cade. And they're talking about like 40 wins. And I'm like, absolutely not. You better pump the brakes. You should be looking at 2025. It looks like that's, about where they're going to end up. And the thing about this season is you want to look at, how the young guys are performing. I think Saddiq Bey, after a rough start to the year, has, kind of come along, especially when it's just him and Cade out there. And like when Jeremy Grant's been out of the lineup, you look at Killian Hayes, who we'll get to a little bit later. Most people probably want to see some more from him. And Isaiah Stewart's been up and down, but Cade's been great. So you really just want to look at like how the young guys are playing and not necessarily concern yourself with the win column.
Right. And I mean, this is a team, you say don't concern yourself with the win column, but since the All-Star break, where they were losing 8 of 9 going into it, they're 5-2 since. 4 of those wins coming against playoff teams. Some of these teams are in the play-in to the playoffs. So, but they're still playoff teams, so it counts. This gelling, this playing together, this is, I just found, we just found this out a little bit ago by doing the numbers that this bench is the 6th best bench in basketball right now, averaging over 38 points a game. And we just added to it with the trade that happened right before the All-Star break, a 4-team trade the Pistons were a part of, bringing in what I think is a big get in Marvin Bagley III. You're talking about the number 2 pick from 2018, hot product coming out of Duke, just never worked in Sacramento. He was injured. That was definitely a play of it. But like after he was injured, like I'm not seeing him play. I'm not seeing him get any minutes since coming to Detroit, and he's getting his minutes. I mean, this kid's averaging 14-7, just coming off a 19-10 game. Like this is just all the up and up for this team, I think.
Yeah, and even when he was in Sacramento, he played pretty well when he got some minutes, or at least he put up numbers, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that he's playing well. But he was putting up numbers, close to 14-7. But just anytime that you can take a swing on a guy like this, he's still young. A lot of his hate has come from not just him being the number 2 pick, but particularly him being picked ahead of Luka Doncic, who has obviously gone on to be an NBA star already. And Bagley just never amounted to that. And then he had some attitude issues in Sacramento as well. There's some clips of, him like refusing to sub into games. But Sacramento as an organization is just, we might think the Pistons have it bad, or at least had it bad, before this Troy Weaver renaissance. But, I don't know that we were ever quite as bad as the Kings were, because they had some good players. They just, mismanaged to all hell.
Right. And there's still time for Marvin Bagley. This kid's what, 22? Like
he can't be any older than
really young. Like there's still plenty of time for him to join that echelon of players that he was drafted around to maybe become that stud. And if he does it here, all the better.
At 22, about to be 23. His birthday is March 14th.
That's what I love.
Happy early birthday to Marvin Bagley.
right? Like this team average age is 25 years old. It's like the 8th youngest in the NBA, and we're talking like points of a year between like 8th and 4th youngest in the NBA. Like, so this is a young team that we're starting to see gel since the All-Star break. Like I said, 5-2. It's just part of that hope that we discussed when we were doing Sports Carnage podcast. Like this is starting to show some of that hope, and the biggest part of that hope was the hope that we got this year in Mr. Cade Cunningham, who is making a push for being added. I mean, he's been part of it ever since he really started playing the season, but he had to play a little bit of catch up because he missed the first few games. But he is absolutely a part of that Rookie of the Year conversation. Rising star MVP for the All-Star break. I mean, kid's averaging great numbers that he hit, Ryan. What is this list that this man has joined? There's some names on that list.
Yeah, so Cade Cunningham, it's a weirdly like specific number list, so I want to make sure.
800-something points, 200-something boards, 200-something rebounds. Assists.
Yeah, so he so that's another one since the Pistons. Here it is. So with 815 points, 289 rebounds, and 255 assists in 50 career games, he joins Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Oscar Robertson, Alvin Adams, Ben Simmons, and Luka Doncic as the only players to reach those numbers through 50 games in NBA history.
Yeah. You said Magic. You said MJ. You said Luka.
Yep, the big
O. You're LeBron.
No.
How is LeBron not on this? What did he miss, about one? The number the rookie for the Cavs, like you figured he'd be a part of this list too, but all the better that he's not. And that's not a hate on LeBron. That's just how good of a start Cade has had in his first 50 games to hit these numbers. So how is this kid not the runaway Rookie of the Year?
Well, because he got off to a rough start, right? He's some really bad shooting performances, and he's still
having some bad shooting.
He's still good for the occasional 3 of 14 shooting game, which it's a little disconcerting. But at the start of the year, he was shooting I think like 8% from 3 on his first so many attempts. He was bad, man. But you have to think, he didn't have really any of the preseason because he got hurt, and then he missed the first like chunk of regular season games. So when he got thrown in. He got thrown into the fire, and he was already asked to be, like one of the main guys on the team. He's probably overtaken that from Jeremy now. But even last night, that great performance that put him, 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 10 assists. He still shot like 10 of 25.
Right.
So I think it's really just the shooting percentages. But if you compare him to last season's Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball. So LaMelo last year averaged 15.7 points, 5.9 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 1.6 steals, and shot 43%. Cade this year is averaging more points at 16.5. He's averaging 0.1 less rebounds, so it's 5.9 versus 5.8. And he's averaging one less assist, basically. So 6 assists to 5, 1.2 steals, and he's shooting 40%. So I think the number, like the question that we had down there was, is Cade the best rookie this season? I think absolutely he's the best rookie. I don't think that will mean Rookie of the Year. I think that he should. And the other big argument is for Evan Mobley because the Cavs are the 6th seed in the East, and nobody really expected that from them. But the Cavs are a team they surrounded Mobley with a ton of talent. Darius Garland was an all-star. Jared Allen, I don't think he was an all-star, but he was like the biggest snub. He's played really well for them. They have Lauri Markkanen. I know Colin Sexton's been hurt all year. They had Ricky Rubio, who was playing like so crazy well for them at the start.
Like a healthy Ricky Rubio.
Yeah, like honestly, like a career.
When that kid's healthy, he can ball.
Ricky Rubio. So they surrounded Mobley with, just a lot of really good talent and a lot of really good pieces. And that's led to a lot of the Cavs team success. And Mobley's been great, but that's not necessarily like a direct reflection of, because they have Mobley, now they're the 6th seed. They're probably a playing team if they don't have Mobley. And if the Pistons don't have Cade, they're the 15th team in the Eastern Conference.
As opposed to the 14th right now.
That's right.
But no, I mean, he is behind Mobley from all the numbers I've seen recently, and he's also behind Scotty Barnes. The funny thing about Barnes and Mobley, exact same numbers right now in the season. They're both averaging 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. I'm sure Mobley's having a few more blocks. Scotty Barnes, I mean, you know, we had a show where we were talking about the draft, and none of us could figure out why the Raptors took this kid. We know now why the Raptors took this kid. Scotty Barnes is having a lights-out year. He's been a great fit up there in Toronto. They're both having very good years. You'd look, if you're just a numbers watcher, their numbers aren't as good as Cade's right now. When you talk about just points, rebounds, assists, the 3 stats most people look at, obviously with Mobley being a center, you're not going to think of assists. There have been few centers that have put in pretty decent at assists, and Mobley's not bad. But like you said, for the year for Cade, 17, 6, and 5. He's 27 and 5 in his last 10 games. So he's making up some ground on Barnes and Mobley. And right behind him is Franz Wagner down in Orlando, you know, Michigan kid. He's making noise as well. You know, one thing he's got over all the other rookies, he's played every single game for Orlando this year. Something to be said for durability while putting up numbers and leading Orlando to a really, really bad record, just like Cade's leading us to a really, really bad record. But it's a fun race right now for the NBA Rookie of the Year. I think it's still Mobley's right now to lose. But if Cade continues the push, he can steal that.
Yeah, it's going to take a surge from Cade like he's on in those last 10 games that you mentioned, where he's, 27 and 5 or something. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Cade has 6 games this year of 25 points, 5 assists, and 5 boards, and all the other rookies combined have 3 of those. Mm-hmm. So Cade is certainly capable of putting up those performances. And, I mean, if you want to look at success, not that basketball is an individual one-on-one
not even close
game, but I think he's 5-1 against both Barnes and Mobley this year and against, like, the other top 5. So if you throw in Jalen Green and, like, Jalen Suggs in there, he's, 7-3 or something. So when he's matched up against these other rookies in not these primetime games, right, because a lot of these teams are bad, so they don't get prime slots, but when you get, like, the fans of the Pistons and like the fans of the Rockets, right? When it's Jalen Green versus Cade Cunningham or Cade Cunningham versus Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham versus whoever, like Cade is, you know, he's winning those matchups and he's winning those individual matchups. And that's probably not going to factor into it at all. But I think it does show some competitiveness where you might look at a guy like Jalen Green because, you know, he's more flashy than Cade Cunningham is and, you know, shows a little bit more emotion when he plays. You think like, oh, he might want it more. But, you know, Cade wants it. There was one game the other night that he was, you know, he started talking a little bit, which seemed like it was pretty out of character for him. But that's just kind of him embracing this leadership role on this team, I think. And one thing that I think has benefited Cade recently and has benefited Franz as since the beginning of the year really is, you know, their team's letting them play all these minutes. When Cade was first coming back, he wasn't playing so many minutes because
come back from injury.
He started the season, right. They wanted to ease him into it a little bit. And for Franz to play every game, he's probably averaging close to 30 minutes a game because even when Orlando's getting blown out, like they're letting him get some running, which I think has been a big service to him and has helped his campaign, although he doesn't really have a shot to win Rookie of the Year anymore. I think it's kind of a 3-man race between Barnes, Mobley, obviously, and then Cade. But I think Cade should win it, and I'll go as far on a limb to say I think he will, because I think even if the Pistons don't continue their team success, I think we'll see a lot more games from Cade Cunningham where he's got 25 points and 8 assists and 5 rebounds or something.
It's just nice having a rookie that's in the mix because last year's rookie for us, Killian Hayes, not really in the mix. Injury issues as well as some performance issues. Those issues have continued. Now, look, as far as games played-wise, Killian Hayes is still a rookie. He has not played 82 games yet of basketball in the NBA. We got a guy who's now getting comped to Bruce Brown. Now, Killian Hayes was not lighting the world on fire as an offensive threat in Europe. That just wasn't his game. He's 6'5", tall for a guard, a 6'8" wingspan, which is awesome because it makes his defense, which he's very good at, even easier for him because he's really smart at taking correct angles when he's beat to get there to disrupt the play. Defensively, he's been there. That's not been a question. Offensively, we don't know how great he can be. He has a limit that, if he can start averaging 12, 13 points a game for us, that's a good start. Casey's trying to find a way to get him into the games. The latest idea is let him be the leader of the second squad. Come off the bench and run the team that way. He had one great game so far, 11 points, 12 rebounds a week or two ago.
Yeah,
but we haven't seen the continuation of that. We haven't seen him grow off of that and just show it to us a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to be more aggressive, flat out. And as a fan of Killian Hayes and a fan of Michigan State, I get to watch Killian Hayes and Tyson Walker both not shoot the ball, and it's beyond frustrating because with Killian, he's got the defense. He had Trae Young in like a torture chamber last night. It's one of the big reasons why the Pistons won the game, and he balled out on offense too. I think he had 11 points or 4 boards and like 6 assists or something. So he plays a good all-around game. He can rebound, he can pass really well, and he can defend. It's just about getting those shots up and getting, the confidence to when he does try to attack, try to finish through guys, try to create contact where a lot of his drives, it was a problem last year. It's been a problem this year. He'll go up and then he'll float away from the contact, almost like, he doesn't want to get hit, which makes your difficulty of making the shot go higher and your probability to draw a foul way less. So then you're not getting any points on the drive, because even if you're going hard and you get fouled, you can still get points on the drive even if you miss the shot. You just might get banged around a little bit. And I don't know, maybe he needs some more muscle and some more meat on his bones, so he's more, so he's not as afraid of getting hit sometimes. But I still believe in what Killian can do. I would love to see him and Cade, play together, because I think just as a backcourt defense that is terrifying. And Killian, even in Europe, he was still a good free throw shooter, and maybe I'm holding on to this longer than I should. But he's shot 90% on free throws in in Europe or France or wherever he's playing. And usually that translates you into, a good 3-point shooter. And we haven't seen that yet. But I'm still holding out hope to where if you can just get more confidence with your shot, that he can develop into a 37, 38% 3-point shooter. And then it'll make defenses respect you more. And then maybe, he'll want to go to the basket more, because guys will close out harder. They'll fall for pump fakes, things like that. So for me, there's still a lot with Killian, but there's also a lot to be desired, because he just doesn't seem like he has that necessary mentality to develop the way, a lot of Pistons fans want him to, or at least want him to, because I know a lot have already turned on Killian.
You would think this is a kid who turned pro at 16 years old in Europe. You would think that means he's got that drive, right? He's got that instinct to, want to be a killer. You 16 years old and you're like, screw this, I'm going to Europe. I'm going to go play pro ball there, get paid, and develop my game there, then come back to the NBA. And he did that. But you're the 7th overall pick, and you're being comped to a defensive first, backup guard playing bench minutes. Now, look, the Pistons are home for a legendary bench player in Vinnie Johnson. The microwave, he's right up there when you talk about Pistons lore with Pistons fans with every other bad boy and all the go-to-work.
His name's in the rafters.
So are we okay if that's if Killian's a defensive with a little bit of offensive version of Vinnie Johnson for his career with the Pistons, where he's coming off the bench and leading the second group?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously Bruce Brown is the comp, and Bruce Brown played here, so that's pretty easy. But if you're looking for a high comp for Killian Hayes, you can look at Lonzo Ball, who for the first few years, Lakers fans were impatient with them. I know they got LeBron, and that probably accelerated the impatience. But a guy who people thought couldn't shoot, or just wouldn't shoot, had these bad type of field goal percentage and 3-point numbers, and now he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. And he's just, he's got some more confidence to him, and it was still those same requisite skill sets that he had. He had the passing ability, he had the defensive ability. So if you're looking for a glass half full comparison for Killian Hayes, I would look at Lonzo Ball's career path and see that is a trajectory that Killian could possibly follow, and he's got plenty of time. I mean, he's only 20 years old. This year he's
turned 20 this year.
Yeah, this year he's just not not getting so many of the minutes. He's actually playing less minutes this year than last year, which is surprising. And like you said, still, he doesn't have a full season under his belt yet. He's only played 79 games total in 2 years. So I think next year, if he doesn't do good, I might be ready to jump off the ship. But for now, I'm still buying my house on Killian Island.
I like the way you think. I like your glass half full kind of thought there because Turner Alonso, we real happy in the D. We're going to keep that glass half full feeling, Ryan, because we got to talk about our Spartans. We got to talk about the Wolverines, the Big Ten tourney starting this week. Round 1 going on Wednesday. Both our Spartans and other members of Detroit Sports Nation who root for the Michigan Wolverines, they're Wolverines, both starting in round 2. Michigan State, man, we came out smoking hot to start this year. 14-2 at one point. We feeling great about ourselves. We popping collars, everything dandy. Cool. Second half of the year, not so much. A 6-9 finish. We 20-11 with the 7 seed in the Big Ten tournament and got a rematch against Maryland, who we just beat to get to our 20th win by 10 points. The Michigan Wolverines, a little bit of they were just mediocre the whole way through. 7-7, at the 14-game mark. They, moved on. They're 17-13, so they had a better finish than they started with, but it never blew the doors off anybody. They're the 8 seed taking on Indiana, the 9 seed. We need something, Ryan, because the way Michigan State's been playing lately, we about to whimper out the tournament.
Yeah, it's not Michigan State doesn't do a lot of things that give you hope for a deep March run, right? They don't score the ball. They turn the ball over a lot, and it doesn't seem like they can play consistent defense anymore. At the beginning of the year, it was a completely different story. But, these last really 2 months, which is probably a better sample size than whatever we had in the first, the first month or month and a half or so. It's just been really rough. And things that typical Michigan State teams can fall back on, rebounding and toughness. This Michigan State team doesn't do any of that either. They don't have really a big that they can trust. I talked about Tyson Walker a little bit.
Man set the brand new Michigan State record for blocks for his career. What you mean we ain't got a big?
Nope.
What's Bingham to you?
Oh, Bingham's a large disappointment. I was so hyped for him for every single year he's been in Michigan State. I was like, this is his year to break out. This is his year to break out. And he just got a little bit better. And then at the start of this year, he is looking like Bill Russell. He's blocking everything that's coming to him. He's finishing off these like monstrous alley-oop dunks. It's like finally. And even last game against Maryland, we saw he started like 3 of 3 from 3 or something. It's just it's not there consistently. And we don't have any other bigs certainly behind him that can, that can do anything at all. One thing I'm looking at like the bracketology here because right now Joe Lunardi has Michigan State as an 8 seed playing 9 seed San Francisco, and he has Michigan as an 11 playing 6 seed LSU. And I think I would rather be 11 seed than an 8 seed because even in Michigan
you don't
State,
want to face number 1 the next game.
No, I don't want to face number 1 because there's absolutely no shot that Michigan State. We already saw them play Baylor. Baylor smoked their boots. The other number 1 right now is Gonzaga. Kansas, we saw them play Kansas. Michigan State got their boots smoked there too. And then your Arizona Wildcats. I think I'd rather take 11 and take an LSU as opposed to San Francisco and see if we could, sneak out a win against this number 3 Texas Tech, or if Seattle upsets Texas Tech, then you get a favorable matchup to at least get to the second weekend because we need something positive. And Michigan State, for the last 2 months really hasn't given us anything to be positive about except one win.
Except Purdue. Yep, that's it. And we followed that up by getting squashed.
Yeah, it's smacked.
I apologize, all of us Michigan and Michigan State fans for basketball this year because, look, we're going to stay positive and we're going to keep talking about them until their seasons run out. So you got about 2 more episodes of Throwing Stones before you ain't going to hear about the maize and blue or green and white for a little bit.
I'm going to be a fool. Watch them win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, and I'm right back on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right back on
right there with you. Save me my seat right there on that train.
Just for them to hurt me again.
That's really good. That's fantastic, Ryan, because we got to talk about a coach who hurt us a lot throughout his career. Look, we got a legend in Tom Izzo. Fantastic head coach. Love what he's done for us for 30 years almost. But when he went up against Mike Krzyzewski, he came out on the losing end of the stick way too many times. His record is what, 2-12 against Krzyzewski?
I think it's 3 because they beat him last year.
Oh, okay. So 3-12. All right. Hey, all right. Hey, good job, Izzo. But I digress. Coach K has taught a lesson, Ryan, to all of the legendary head coaches out there who are going to announce that this year is their final year. Give your team 1 year's notice so that they can schedule some D2 school for your final home game and not your biggest rival in North Carolina, because God, did the Tar Heels put a damper on Coach K night at Cameron Indoor this weekend.
Oh, well, I saw some stat, and it's like honestly the craziest college basketball stat I've ever seen, where North Carolina scored 43 points in the last 13 minutes of the game or something. So Michigan State can't do that in 30 minutes. And North Carolina does it like in 13. It's unbelievable. And as much as I wanted to feel sorry for Coach K, because he's coached almost 500 players, and I think 98 of them was run up to 100. 100 of them were there that night.
Right.
To support him, pretty much everyone that's played for him speaks very highly of him. A great man, yada yada yada, great teacher. And I felt bad. I felt a little bit bad for him because they were up double digits in the second half, and then they go to lose it. I was like, it's a tough way to go out. Mm-hmm. And then I start hearing all this stuff like after the game where Duke is mad that North Carolina didn't do more for Coach K, like on the last game. It's like, man, will you just shut up?
Hold up. If you mad, why you lose that game?
At first, he blew off Hubert Davis in the handshake line.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, a guy who's up here crying about like class all the time. You should probably be a little bit classier than that. He's on the mic after the game telling his fans like, "Oh, this is unacceptable," just completely throwing your team under the bus. I don't know, man. It's pretty unbelievable. He's such a hard guy to like. Even in the slightest moment that I wanted to feel bad for him, 20 minutes of reading Twitter after the game threw all of that out the window. I'm glad K's gone, and not just because he beat Michigan State, because Izzo, his last 2 games is 2-0 against Coach K. So, going on top.
Oh, so he's a coward. He left before the getting got good there.
Yeah, he's scared of Izzo, of Izzo's second half.
Right. Well, to be fair, with this being the Coach K send-off year, all the teams knew it, and a lot of teams, when Duke came to play their last game at their rivals, Syracuse and wherever, there was something given to Coach K, whether it was a donation to his wife's charity or an actual gift. Syracuse gave him a piece of the Carrier Dome roof. They made a plaque out of it, like a picture of him, and I don't know. But North Carolina didn't do a damn thing when Duke came to play its last game at Chapel Hill. That's a rivalry. And AJ and I talked about this on Straight Shootin'. 50-46 for the 96 games that Duke and North Carolina played when Krzyzewski is head coach of Duke. 50-46 is his record against North Carolina. That's a rivalry, Ryan. Like, we talk about our rivalries with Michigan and Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. Ohio State's been beating the ever-living crap out of Michigan for the last 20 years, except for last year and a year way before that. But, like, Jesus, you go against your rival 96 times, and it's damn near a 500 record. Of course, North Carolina's not going to do nothing special. They'll do something after the season. You're going to get something. I'm sure Roy Williams sent him some nice letter, even though Roy's no longer the head coach of North Carolina. But, like, I'm sure they did something where when you come in for your last game and you are that big of a rival, you should not be expecting anything.
Yeah, they gave him a fat ass L. That's what they gave him. Here, take this down Tobacco Road.
Well, look, I mean, this man's career, as much as we hate him here at Michigan State fans, legendary career. You're talking about the second most national championships with 5 behind John Wooden, great John Wooden, most NCAA tournament bids all time, most Final Fours tied with Wooden all time, just most wins all time, obviously. No matter how you slice it, this is a top 5 head coach, I think, in college basketball, and I think it's the top half of 5. Me personally, I'm throwing him right behind Wooden. And he's ahead of Wooden.
No, there's no question. Coach K is one of the best college coaches of all time. And he coached the Olympic team too.
He's got 6 gold medals.
Not
He's got
that it's
6
hard.
gold medals with the U.S.
Not that it's
national team.
hard. Not that that's hard to coach the Olympic team. But no, certainly a great coach of all. Like, think of all just the great Duke basketball players that have been in the NBA too. So he got him to Duke. He won with them at Duke, and then he sent them to the NBA, where a lot of them had excellent careers. And is what you want in every college basketball coach, right? Like every school in America, if you said you can sign up for the next 30 years and you get Coach K success, you're taking that 10 times out of 10.
So let me ask you a question, because this just popped in my head. Is his 5 national championships through his career, and college basketball changed at least once, if not twice, maybe 3 times throughout his career at Duke, versus John Wooden's 10 in like a 15-year span, throughout the 60s and into the 70s. Like, is his 5 with the modern era of basketball changing multiple times, one and dones, change the whole game, is that more impressive than Wooden's 10?
So the one thing I would have to look up to see is like who else won during Wooden's 10, because I know the way March Madness is now, it's obviously one and done, but there's just way better teams who are the 8 seed or the 9 seed or even the 14 seed, right? And back even if it was a 64 team tournament back when Wooden was winning, I'm sure the 8 seeded team would have been just so like horribly bad at basketball that it wouldn't have even been a competition. Well, I don't know. I think Wooden's winning streak is probably still the most impressive thing I've ever seen in college basketball, where they went 3 years without losing, or 2.5 years or something without losing.
82-0, I think 81-0, 88-0, somewhere up there. I off the top of my head, I can't remember, but it's right around there.
It's a lot of wins.
It's a lot of wins.
Losses. But no, I'd say not, only because he's been at Duke for so long. I think you're hard pressed to find, another coach who would be able to do that or has a better accomplishment than probably 4 or 5 things that Coach K can point to in his career and say, I did this, 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 and this. But 5 over what, 30 years that he was the head coach at Duke. It's still insanely impressive because you're at 1 title every 6 years. But 10 and 15 is just, that's some Bill Russell type efficiency.
5 out of 30 years is damn impressive. What's more impressive? 5 out of 12 years and making the NBA Finals 9 times in those 12 years. In fact, it's so impressive that HBO Max decided to make a TV show based off of it. And it debuted this past Sunday, Winning Time, the story of the Showtime Los Angeles Lakers surrounded around Magic Johnson, hence the 5 championships in 12 years. Ryan, you know me. You know who my guy is above everybody else, and it's Earvin Magic Johnson. So I'm watching this show. I already watched episode 1, and the man playing Earvin Magic Johnson is my least favorite person in the show so far. That's how good of a casting job I feel they did with this show. John C. Reilly as Dr. Jerry Buss is a spot-on look for how Jerry Buss looked in the 70s and 80s. Jason Clarke playing a very grumpy Mr. Logo himself, Jerry West, is perfect. The man they got for Cap, for Magic's dad. I'm all on board. I'm all on board with this new show, Winning Time.
Yeah, I mean, he did such a good job playing Jerry West. I hate the real Jerry West more than I did but before I watched it, because I didn't know he was out there, giving it up like that. So I saw that and I was like, "Ooh, damn, Jerry." They made the logo.
That surprised me. I love how they called it out too. When John C. Reilly introduces him, he's like, "That's Jerry West, the nicest guy in the league." For everyone who doesn't know him, that man apparently real angry that they're trying to draft Magic Johnson because they already have Norm Nixon. Hey, Norm Nixon was an all-star. Can't hate him too much, but we that was now what we know now.
That was one of the more informative things, I guess. I never knew who Magic replaced. I guess I never gave it a second thought. But it being an all-star point guard, that did surprise me. And they had that scene where they played at that party, and he got Magic Johnson out of there real quick, even though he was talking to him talking to Magic like he was some country bumpkin, and Norm Nixon is from Georgia, and Magic Johnson's from Lansing. So that part I didn't understand too much. Just looking at it, because you're like, oh, well, where's Norm from? Yeah, he's from Georgia. Like, so what are you talking about? That Lansing is this mama, the cow's got to come home.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it though. They focused a lot on Jeannie Buss, obviously, as the daughter and as the person who owns the Lakers now. So there's always that connection. There's a funny Donald Sterling appearance that
Jesus
that made me laugh, and I was certainly not expecting. And all kind of the fourth wall breaking they did. I guess that'd be the only thing that I hope can kind of get out of the way. Yeah, as the show progresses, I understand the need for it in the first episode, especially when you're setting everything up and you're setting up the different, the different tensions, I guess, that were going on, and John C. Reilly or Jerry Buss explaining this is the subtext behind this is what he really means, and things like that. But I can do with a little bit less of that. And it was funny, them playing chicken like in the negotiating table. It was I enjoyed it very much, and I can't wait for next Sunday, honestly.
If you're not an NBA historian and you're a younger fan of the game of basketball, you have no idea what the NBA was like going into the 80s. Look, I wasn't alive for it. I learned it later. But the NBA going into the 80s was a giant question mark of a league that was even going to be around by 1985. The league had a whole bunch of black eyes from drug use and racism. And this show is not hiding from that racism. They flat out hit you in the face with it very early on when they discuss Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, when there's the lunch scene with Jack Kent Cooke and Jerry Buss and Magic and his dad. Like, they don't hide from this at all. And if you don't know about this era, you might be off-put by that. But that was literally a thing that was posted in the papers of, is the league too black? And Magic and Bird, if you don't know this, you should know this as a basketball fan, literally saved the NBA. And I think a lot of that's going to get covered throughout this series. I hope it does. I can't wait to see who plays Pat Riley. I have not looked it up. There's a few actors in my mind that I'm hoping, but they're kind of bigger names, so we'll see if that actually happens. There's a few lookalikes. But yeah, I'm all in. This show, first episode, even if I wasn't a Magic Johnson fan as I am, just a basketball fan, I think you got to dig this show. And I understand your thoughts on the fourth wall. I'm kind of there as well, but as good as this first episode was, I can forgive it.
Yeah, and like I said, I think they'll probably do a little bit less of that. We also got some cookies sprinkled in. So Everybody that you probably thought about in Magic's life, like I read the Magic autobiography for a book report in 8th grade. So all the people that were popping up, I was wondering, like, are we going to see them? I'm sure see them at some point, but it's just like the Leo meme where he's just pointing and staring, like, ooh, I know who that is. It's a lot of fun.
There's so many people to come from, for those of us that know basketball. They hit us with some big ones already, obviously with Cap and Magic, of course. But I mean, we're going to find out, who's playing Kurt Rambis. We're going to find out later on who's playing James Worthy, who's playing AC Green, Byron Scott, Michael Cooper. Like, it's going to, and then of course, all the rivals. Who's going to play Michael Jordan? Who's going to play Isaiah Thomas? Because the bad boys are going to be a part of this show somehow. We already saw who's going to play Bird, but we haven't seen the rest of the Celtics outside of showing again and again after Jerry West lost final after final after final to the Celtics. They just keep showing red with a damn cigar. I was like, come on, you ain't got to do him like that.
Cap saying F you to that kid.
Oh, yeah. That's spot on. That was always Kareem's problem. He was not a personable person to the fans. And that's, probably why they loved Magic so much as they did, is that he was the complete opposite of that.
What's funny, though, is, and then I guess we can wrap it up. I was watching it with my girlfriend, who not a basketball fan at all. But when they got to the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scene, like when they're recreating
the airplane
movie, yeah, she was like, "That's from Airplane." It's like, yeah.
Awesome.
Then we did a little Google image search, and it was like they're just the same exact. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like same exact.
No, that's perfect.
And
That's fantastic.
All
right, well, we come to the end of the show, but we got to have a little fun, as if we haven't had any fun whatsoever, at the end of this show. So, Ryan, we got the NBA Twitter of the week.
Yeah, the Twitter moment of the week. I don't know if I can share my screen. Maybe not. Or if this will get put in post, I guess. But Big Baby Davis, he got caught trying to steal someone's courtside seats. So the Nets were playing the Celtics on national TV on ESPN or ABC, I guess. And they cut to Big Baby, 2008 champion with the Boston Celtic. Yeah. And as soon as they cut to him, somebody comes up to him and they're like, "Hey, these are our seats." And he doesn't protest. He just like, "Oh, these are your seats." Oh, all right.
My bad.
And then he gets up and walks away. And the best part is in the background, you can hear Kevin Durant say, "Hey, those ain't your seats, big dog." And I love it so much because, like for Baby to sit that close, obviously he's rooting for the Celtics. Kevin Durant certainly not shy of talking trash. So, they're probably jawing at each other. Tatum's giving him the business. He had 54. So I'm sure Katie was hearing all of that from Big Baby himself. And then for Baby to get called out by by Kevin Durant just in that one moment where KD probably should be focusing on the game. And then he just sees like Big Baby moving seats. And then in his mind, he's like, I got to address this.
I just don't understand why he didn't have already good seats.
I know, like you're a millionaire. It was in
Boston. He ain't got to pay for them.
You think that'd just be reserved for
that man helped put a banner up there. You ain't got to pay for a seat up there.
Like the other funniest subtext of it is Big Baby was part of that the NBA dental insurance fraud scandal.
Oh God,
where they got scammed out or tried to scam the NBA out of $100 million or something. Yeah, worth of like dental work. So
we can sweep that under the rug, not talk about it on national TV for you.
So he's still he's still out here trying to scam in a way, or trying to steal some type of way, stealing these people's seats. It's obviously, a way less heinous offense than whatever he was trying to do before. But there was a comment on Twitter where it's like, oh, yeah, he definitely did that insurance fraud stuff.
Jesus. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this inaugural show of Throwing Stones. Again, please follow us. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We coming to TikTok. I promise you. You got thoughts and ideas for the show? Hit us up. We love to hear it. All the stuff's right there on your screen. For Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Basson. Have a great night. We'll see y'all again real soon.